we have already learnt about phrases and clauses, and we know that a phrase as well as a clause is a group of words. So what is the difference between them? A phrase does not convey complete thought, so it cannot stand alone to form a complete sentence. It may have a subject or a verb, but it does not have a subject doing a verb. It acts as a part of speech like a noun or an adjective or an adverb. Whereas a clause may or may not stand alone to form a complete sentence. When it conveys a complete thought, then it can stand alone as a complete sentence. Otherwise, it cannot stand as a sentence. It has a subject doing a verb. It may or may not act as a part of speech. So when a clause does not stand as a sentence and it does not convey complete thought, in that case, it will act as a part of speech. So it may act as a noun or an adjective or an adverb. Now we have a sentence here which reads, I like orange juice, but my brother likes apple juice. Now this is a long sentence, so we are going to look at it in parts. Let us take the first part. I like orange juice. Now what do we see? This part of the sentence has a subject I and it has a verb like. So this group of words is a clause. If you remember, a group of words having a subject and a verb is a clause. So this is a clause. Now this clause expresses a complete thought. It makes complete sense and can stand alone as a sentence. For example, you may have a sentence which reads, I like orange juice. Now this sentence makes complete sense. So what do we see? That this part, I like orange juice, can be a complete sentence in itself, or it can be a part of a sentence like in our example. So this part, I like orange juice, is a clause, and this clause expresses a complete thought, makes complete sense and can stand alone as a sentence. So this clause is known as an independent or a main clause. So what is an independent or a main clause? It is a clause which will always have a subject and a verb, and it will express a complete thought, it will make complete sense, and it can stand alone as a complete sentence. So what do we see? We see that the sentence, I like orange juice, but my brother likes apple juice, is made up of an independent or a main clause. So the first part of the sentence is an independent or a main clause. Now let us look at the second half of the sentence. My brother likes apple juice. Now this part of the sentence is also a group of words which has a subject and a verb. Subject my brother and the verb likes. So this group of words is also a clause, and this clause also expresses complete thought, it makes complete sense and can stand alone as a sentence. We can always say, my brother likes apple juice. That is a complete sentence. So this clause can also stand alone as a complete sentence. Hence, this clause is also an independent or a main clause. So the entire sentence, I like orange juice, but my brother likes apple juice, is made up of two independent or main clauses. What are they? I like orange juice is one independent clause, and my brother likes apple juice is another independent clause. Now both these independent clauses are joined by the conjunction but, and we know but is a coordinating conjunction. So this sentence has two main clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction but. Now let us look at another sentence. I like orange juice if it is fresh for breakfast. Now this is a conditional sentence, and what do we see? And we will again see this sentence in parts. So the first part, I like orange juice, we have seen is an independent or a main clause. So we will look at the second part. Now the second part of the sentence, if it is fresh for breakfast, has a subject, it, and a verb, is. So the second part, if it is fresh for breakfast, is also a clause, but this clause does not express complete thought. It does not make any sense on its own and cannot stand alone as a sentence. Can we say, if it is fresh for breakfast? We cannot. This sentence is incorrect. It is not complete because it is not giving us the full idea of what it is trying to say. So we see that this part or this clause, if it is fresh for breakfast, does not express complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence. So these kind of clauses which do not express a complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence is known as dependent or subordinate clause. Now why is it called a dependent clause? Because this clause, if it is fresh for breakfast, does not make complete sense on its own. It always depends on the main clause to complete its sense. Hence, this clause is called a dependent or a subordinate clause. So this sentence, I like orange juice if it is fresh for breakfast, is made up of two clauses. I like orange juice is the independent or the main clause because it can stand on its own, and if it is fresh for breakfast is the dependent or the subordinate clause, and in this case our subordinate clause is starting with a subordinating conjunction if. So what do we see? We see that a subordinate clause does not express a complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence. It depends on another clause in the sentence to make complete sense. So, the dependent clause depends on the main clause or the independent clause to make complete sense. It usually starts with a subordinating conjunction like if in our sentence. A sentence having a subordinate clause must have a main clause. So remember that whenever there is a dependent or subordinate clause in a sentence, you will know that there will be an independent or a main clause in the same sentence. Now let us look at a few examples. Tim goes to bed late because he reads every night. Now this sentence is made up of two clauses. Let us try to identify them. So the first part of the sentence, Tim goes to bed late, can stand alone as a sentence and it makes complete sense. Tim goes to bed late. So this is an independent or a main clause, whereas the second half of the sentence, because he reads every night, is the dependent or a subordinate clause because it depends on the main clause to complete its sense. If we just say Because he reads every night, it does not make any sense. It is not complete. So we need an independent or a main clause to make its sense complete. He set sail though the storm approached. So this sentence is also made up of two clauses. Let us identify them. He set sail is a part which can stand alone as a complete sentence. So he set sail is a main clause, whereas though the storm approached is a subordinate clause because it will not make sense till we write he set sail. So he set sail is the main clause and though the storm approached is the dependent or the subordinate clause. Now that you have learnt what are dependent clauses and what are independent clauses, let us do this exercise. Identify the independent clause and the dependent clause in the following sentence. She went for a movie after her classes were over. So this sentence is made up of two clauses. Let us identify them. She went for a movie makes complete sense and can stand alone as a complete sentence. She went for a movie. So this part of the sentence is an independent or a main clause. And after her classes were over does not make complete sense on its own. You will notice that this clause or the subordinate clause is starting with the subordinating conjunction after. So remember that every time there is a subordinate clause, it will always start with a subordinating conjunction. So what have we learnt today? We have learnt that a main or an independent clause expresses a complete thought, makes complete sense and can stand alone as a sentence. Whereas the subordinate or dependent clause does not express a complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence. It depends on another clause. Which clause is it? Usually the main clause or the independent clause? It depends on another clause in the sentence to make complete sense. It usually starts with a subordinating conjunction. It acts as a single part of speech and can act as a noun or an adverb or an adjective. So, there are three kinds of subordinate or dependent clauses depending on their role in the sentence. So, it can be a noun clause if it does the role of a noun in a sentence, or an adverb clause if it does the role of an adverb in a sentence, and it can also be an adjective clause if it does the work of an adjective in the sentence. Now that you have learnt what are dependent clauses and independent clauses and that there are three kinds of dependent clauses, we shall soon learn about them in detail.